All right, so today we're going to look into something pretty wild, and I think a lot of people just aren't aware of this, but we're always trying to stay ahead of the curve here. So get this, about 100 Chinese short dramas are being filmed every single month in Los Angeles.
Yeah, 100 a month? That's not just a trend. That's a whole industry popping up right under our noses.
It really is. And we're not talking about your typical Hollywood productions here. These are what they call vertical dramas, short dramas, coming straight out of China, made for phones, vertical screens like TikTok, Instagram Reels, that kind of thing, but with, actual stories.
Right, more like miniseries, really. And they're finding a huge audience here in the US, mostly women 20 to 40 years old from what I've seen. And the stories themselves are, well, let's just say they're not exactly subtle.
Yeah, lots of CEO romances, family dramas, super intense melodrama, the kind of stuff that grabs you by the eyeballs and doesn't let go. And that's what we're diving into today. Why these Chinese vertical dramas are blowing up in the U.S., how they're shaking things up in L.A., what it means for good old Hollywood. And we'll even touch on how this all compares to, that whole Quibi thing that, well, didn't quite work out.
Right, Quibi, a cautionary tale, perhaps. But yeah, this is about understanding a whole new side of the entertainment world, one that's growing really fast and could change how we think about global media.
Exactly. So to help us break it all down, we've got a fantastic guest today, a journalist who's been covering this trend in L.A. since late last year. She's been on set. Talked to the people making these dramas. She's really in the thick of it. So first off, I got to ask, how did you even stumble onto this whole thing? It seems like it's been happening kind of under the radar.
Well, it did start with a bit of a chance encounter. I was talking to a friend who works in film production in LA, and they were suddenly swamped with work shooting these short dramas. And I was surprised because at the time, short dramas weren't even that well regarded in China itself. So it was like this weird reverse import situation.
So you're hearing about all this productions happening. What kind of scale are we talking about here? What made you realize this was more than just a small-time thing?
The scale is massive. I mean, like I said, about 100 productions a month. And it's not just the numbers, it's who's involved. I kept hearing about local film students who, usually work on regular TV and film sets. They were all finding jobs on these short dramas, camera operators, lighting techs, you name it. Everyone was jumping on board for the steady work.
Wow, so they're tapping into Hollywood's talent pool. But for these Chinese productions, that's fascinating. And what about the actual production process? Is it anything like a typical Hollywood shoot?
Not at all. It's incredibly fast-paced. They usually shoot an entire series in just 7 to 9 days, which is insane compared to the weeks or months it takes for a traditional show.
7 to 9 days for a whole series. So they must have everything planned down to the minute. How do they even find locations in the way with such a tight schedule?
They've got a system for that. There are apps and websites that list places available for filming: office buildings, houses, even studio spaces. It's like Airbnb, but for film sets. I even visited this warehouse that they had transformed into all sorts of different sets: a prison, a motel, a police station, all in one place. They're really resourceful.
That's incredible. So they're using Hollywood's locations, its crew. What about the actors? Are we seeing mostly Chinese actors, or are there Americans involved too?
There are a lot of American actors involved. Actually, all ages, all levels of experience. I even heard about some who'd been on big American shows like Grey's Anatomy, for example. The pay varies, but lead actors can make anywhere from $700 to $2,000 a day. And there's even a whole new category of top-tier short drama actors who are in super high demand.
Top-tier short drama actors. That's a new one. So these are actors who've made a name for themselves specifically in this world of Chinese short dramas. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's a whole niche now. A good example is this guy they called NOA. He's in his mid-20s. He actually wanted to play in the NFL. Then he got into modeling. And after the pandemic hit and during the writer's strike, he started doing these short dramas and he just took off. He's already been in like 40 series since last August. And they're filming all over the place: Turkey, UK, Middle East, Canada, Vietnam, Malaysia. It's global.
That's wild. So from NFL dreams to global short drama stardom, I guess you never know where life will take you. But what's driving these American actors to get involved in these productions? Is it just the money, or is there something more to it?
Well, the money's definitely a factor, especially during those strikes when work was hard to come by. But for some, it's also about the opportunity to practice their craft, get more experience and maybe even get noticed in this new international market. I talked to some younger actors who said they'd rather be at the forefront of something new and growing than struggling to break into the traditional Hollywood system.
That makes sense. It's like being a pioneer in a new territory. But let's talk about the content itself, these CEO romances, the melodrama. Where are these stories coming from? Are they being written specifically for American audiences?
For now, pretty much all of the scripts are adaptations of popular Chinese online dramas. There was a brief attempt to make original English language content in Southeast Asia, but it didn't really pan out due to language barriers and logistical issues.
So they're taking what works in China and bringing it here. But the interesting thing is that the type of content that's popular in China also seems to be resonating with American audiences. These over-the-top storylines, the face-slapping moments, it's not exactly what you'd expect to see in typical Western entertainment.
Right, and that's what surprised me too. The main audience for these short dramas in the US are women in their 20s to 40s, and they seem to love this intense drama, the illogical plot, twists, the heightened emotions. It's like a guilty pleasure.
It's like those soap operas your grandma used to watch, but for the smartphone generation.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that when Chinese investors tried to make the stories more complex or add that Hollywood-style logic, it actually didn't perform as well. The data showed that people preferred the original over-the-top style.
So they're sticking with what works even if it goes against those traditional Hollywood storytelling rules about character development and believable plots. It's all about the drama.
Yeah, the emotional punch is key. And they're even using AI to translate the scripts from Chinese to English. The actors can make small changes on set, but the focus is on preserving those dramatic beats, the core of what makes the story so engaging.
So it's not about a perfect translation. It's about capturing the essence of the drama. That reminds me of telenovelas, those Spanish-language soap operas. They've always been super popular in the U.S. Are there any similarities between those and these Chinese short dramas?
There are definitely parallels. Both are known for their intense drama, the over-the-top characters, the cliffhanger endings. But the big difference is the format. Telenovelas are long. They can go on for hundreds of episodes. These short dramas are short and sweet, perfect for watching on your phone when you have a few minutes to spare.
So it's like they've taken the telenovela formula and adapted it for the digital age bite-sized drama for the on-the-go viewer. So we've got Hollywood locations, Hollywood crews, Hollywood actors, but the stories are Chinese, the money's Chinese, the creative vision is Chinese. What does that mean for Hollywood itself? Is it threatened by this new wave of content?
I don't think it's a threat, exactly. It's more like a parallel ecosystem. Hollywood is providing the resources, the infrastructure, but it doesn't have much creative control over these productions. The Chinese companies are calling the shots. They're catering to a different audience with a different type of content.
It's like two worlds colliding, but not really clashing, more like coexisting.
Yeah, and there was this unexpected twist with the Hollywood strikes last year. Those strikes actually ended up benefiting the short dramas in a way, because with so many writers and actors out of work, a lot of experienced film professionals turned to these Chinese productions to make a living.
So the strikes inadvertently raised the production value of these short dramas. That's pretty ironic. But speaking of short-form video, we can't ignore Quibi, that big, expensive flop from a few years back. What are the lessons we can learn from comparing Quibi's failure with the success of these Chinese dramas?
I think the key difference is in the content strategy. Quibi tried to create high-quality, Hollywood-style short films with big names attached. They were aiming for a more sophisticated audience willing to pay for premium content.
But it just didn't catch on.
Right, people weren't willing to pay for short-form content that they could get for free elsewhere. And Quibi's content, even though it was well-made, didn't really tap into any existing cravings or trends. It was trying to create something new instead of building on what was already working.
Whereas the Chinese dramas, they knew what their audience wanted. They didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They just delivered more of what people were already watching, but in a convenient format.
Exactly. They understood their niche and they filled it perfectly. So I think the lesson for Hollywood is that short-form content can definitely be successful, but you have to know your audience and give them what they want. Don't try to force-feed them something they're not hungry for.
So what does all of this mean for the future of entertainment? What are the big takeaways here?
I think we're seeing a shift in how people consume content, especially younger audiences. They're used to short-form video, they're used to getting their entertainment on their phones, and they're drawn to content that's fast-paced, dramatic, and emotionally engaging.
So it's not just about the length, it's about the type of story, the way it's told.
Exactly. And this trend is also changing the global landscape of media production. We're seeing Chinese companies investing heavily in content creation, and they're not afraid to experiment, to push boundaries, and to cater to a global audience.
It's like the center of gravity is shifting, and Hollywood is having to adapt.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be watching the entertainment industry. It's evolving rapidly, and who knows what the next big thing will be. But one thing's for sure, short-form video is here to stay, and it's going to keep changing the game.
So here's something to think about. Given how popular these Chinese short dramas are becoming worldwide, could we see Western studios and platforms trying to replicate their success? Could we see a fusion of these dramatic storytelling techniques with Western narratives? Could this be the future of global entertainment? It's definitely something to ponder.
It is. It challenges our assumptions about what makes a story good, what makes it resonate with audiences. And it makes you wonder what role cultural differences will play in the future of entertainment.
It's a whole new world out there, folks, and we're just starting to explore it. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your insight.
It's my pleasure.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive, but don't worry, we'll be back soon with another fascinating topic to unpack. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds open. See you next time.